All right, everybody, what is up? It is Mondays Down South. Boys, I'm so excited to say this for the first time. Presented by Seams Media, our first episode under a new rebrand. Check out our trailer. We're going to post on the site if you want more detail on the rebrand. We got tons of information out there. But I want to jump into it, man. I'm pumped. First episode in a long time. We got the NFL right around the corner, man. I don't want to read around too long, but boys, we're back. Say hello.
Finally, I never thought the day would come. Never thought the day would come, man. But football, we're about to have 5 straight months of football starting next week. I can't wait.
I've just been waiting to give this intro for like a year now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Mondays Down South. I'm so excited. I have practiced that more times than I can count, gentlemen. I am ready to roll. I don't even want to waste time. Let's do this. NFC.
Yeah, let's start out in the NFC East, or I mean, I guess we're probably still calling it the NFC least, but yeah, obviously this is gonna be our NFL predictions episode. So I'll start us off there. I think it starts off with the Eagles at the top. I know a lot of people might have Dallas as the consensus favorite still, but I just think the Eagles have done quite a bit this offseason getting A.J. Brown. I think they had a fantastic draft with Jordan Davis. I just think they're the all-around better team. I expect Dallas to regress quite a bit, specifically at wide receiver. You have CeeDee Lamb there. Gallup's hurt to start the year. No Amari Cooper. Offensive line just lost Tyron Smith. I think that's going to be a huge problem. The defense should still be good, but I just think they're going to regress too much. I will still slot Dallas at second, but I think them and the Commanders are going to be neck and neck. The Commanders, I think, have a wide array of outcomes that could happen. I think they could be better and closer to the division winner, or they could be closer to the bottom competing with the Giants for fourth. You know, what is Carson Wentz going to look like? There's so many moving pieces. It comes down to the defense. They need to play better, specifically on third down, which I'm not too confident in. So I'm going to say Dallas 2, Washington 3. I still think the Giants are a mess. They should be better with a better offensive line. Brian Dable, who's too good of a coach. The Giants don't deserve him. But I think they're still going to be fourth. Interested to see what Saquon Barkley does this year. But that's how I stack it up. Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, Giants. What do you boys think?
I think the hype is real behind the Eagles, but I would say with the Cowboys, you mentioned that defense is good. I think the defense was above average because of Mr. Dan Quinn. But I just don't trust that defense this year. Like you had mentioned, Ev, the offensive line has gone down a little bit. They also lost key pieces, right? Amari getting shipped off. Cedric Wilson, who was a pretty solid guy going to Miami over there. So, Dak's going to have a little bit more, responsibility, I would say, and a little bit more pressure. Zeke also looks like an offensive lineman, so maybe they'll stick him at left tackle at this point. But don't sleep on the Commanders. I really do like the Commanders. I like how there's no expectation there. Maybe that'll be good for Carson Wentz. And one thing that Carson Wentz does better than anybody else is he does throw a pretty deep ball, and McLaurin is one of the best guys at catching it. So that's all I got to say.
All right. Well, first of all, it wouldn't be a segment about anything if Zach didn't make an ode to his ex-coach Dan Quinn of the Falcons. That was amazing. Thank you for that, Zach. With that being said, I definitely can't pick the Cowboys now. I'm going to go with the Eagles, like Evan said, to win it. But I actually think this is going to be a super close race between those two. I think it'll come down to probably the last game of the season, and it'll come down to one win between the two of them. I got the Commanders in third place, about 2 wins back from second place. Myself, I just think there's a lot of moving parts they have to figure out. I think the cores of the other two teams are more similar from prior years, and their upgrades have been more positions of skill positions, whereas for the Commanders, obviously Carson Wentz coming in, figuring a couple things out. That doesn't mean they don't potentially have a bright future. I just think they have a lot of moving parts to kind of figure out. So I'm third, and then fourth, I agree, Giants. But I actually don't think the Giants are going to be as bad as we're saying. One, because of Dable, like we mentioned, great coaching. Two, I actually think they upgraded a lot. Their offensive line is a lot better. Saquon Barkley, I think, is going to have a huge bounce-back season. I think he looks great. I think last year one of the problems was he was coming back from injury, but then on top of that, he had an awful offensive line situation. Not awful, but he had a tough situation with the offense opening up because they couldn't throw the ball down the field. And I expect him to do a lot more of that this year. But again, it comes down to Daniel Jones because they have a good defense. So I think we're all in consensus here. So
all right, let's go NFC South over here. So we got Tom Brady out 11 days. Let's go 11 wins. 11 wins for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they sit there at 11-6, 12-5. No threat to lose that division by any means, but don't sleep on the New Orleans Saints. One of the biggest question marks, right, with Jameis Winston, Sean Payton's gone, but that roster is kind of nasty. I'm not going to lie. They got Tyrann Mathieu in the defense just to add to that stacked defensive back unit. And then on the offensive side, Mike Thomas potentially come back. I know he's on the PUP list right now, but they got Jarvis Landry, added a couple pieces. They added Mark Ingram back again. So go Saints, go. We'll see how they end up turning out. Don't sleep on the Panthers either. 2 sleeper teams between New Orleans and Carolina. Carolina because they actually have a relatively good defensive unit this year. And I think their offense could make splashes with DJ Moore and Baker, who have clearly had this amazing relationship since training camp. I won't even speak on the Falcons, so we can just move forward there.
I'll speak on the Falcons. I actually think this year I would take I don't know what their over-under is in terms of what people are projecting for wins, but I'm actually going to take the over on the Falcons because I love the youth of that team. Not because I think they're going to compete, but because I actually think that they have a brighter future than people are giving them credit for. I know Ridley's out still this year, but having Drake London come in, I think he's going to be nasty once he gets the opportunities. I think Kyle Pitts takes a leap up after over 1,000 yards as a rookie. And I think Mariota isn't as bad as we think he is. Like he was a quality backup. I think he's got the possibility to lead a decent team. So I'll touch on the Falcons a little bit because I think Zach kind of said everything I needed to say about the rest of the division, with the exception of the Panthers. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield might be better with the Panthers than he was with the Browns, but I don't expect anything from the Panthers this season in the sense of competing. I just hope we get a full season out of McCaffrey because I just love watching that man play. I think the Bucs win the division, but I don't think they're going to be as good, at least early in the season, as we think they're going to be because they have those offensive line injuries. We don't know what's going to happen with the whole Fournette coming into camp being overweight, whatever kind of situation. I think he'll be fine. But they have a lot of injuries at the receiver position, replaced by old guys like Julio. We'll see what Gage does. And the Buccaneers, I think defensively maybe take a bit of a step back. So they'll win the division, I think. But I actually think the Saints are definitely a sleeper playoff team, like Zach was mentioning. They got a lot to
I'm going to mainly agree with Cy here. I'm highly concerned about the Bucs, which as a Tom Brady stan through and through that fully thought this was going to be his year to win a Super Bowl. I also don't know where his head's at. And, is this family stuff even going to pull him off the field mid-season, which I would be shocked by, but you just never know. I think there's a lot of concerns, most notably the offensive line, like Cy mentioned. I think the Saints are a really good team, but I just think their ceiling's capped by Jameis at quarterback. I just don't think he's going to give them enough to make them challenge the Bucs for the division. They could sneak a wild card, sure, but with how stacked that roster is. I'm not buying the Panthers hype, although, to Zach's point, Baker is still a huge upgrade at quarterback because of how bad they've been over the past couple of years. And if McCaffrey is healthy over the full season, they could be good. I just don't buy that. I think the defense is overrated. The offensive line still sucks. I just don't buy the Panthers hype. So, Cy, do you want to take us to another division?
Yeah. What are we still left with here?
The North.
Do we cover the East? The good old North. Okay, that's the maybe the only division in the NFC I'm actually excited about. No offense to the other two in the sense of competition, but I mean this one's kind of straightforward for me. I think the Rams win it.
You're in the West.
I think San Francisco.
You're in the West.
Oh, sorry. My fault. We jumped to the North. My fault.
Monday's down North.
my apologies. Hey guys, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. If it's okay
in
with
Cy's
you,
defense, the actual North, South, East, West on these divisions is really difficult.
Confusing.
It's really difficult. So.
Well, admittedly, I was a little bit more excited to talk about the Rams and the 49ers than I was the Packers and the Vikings, although I think a lot of people think this is a good tee-up for the North. I think a lot of people think the Packers are going to – I think a lot of people think that it's going to be closer because the Vikings have new coaching and the Packers lost Davante Adams. But that division is Aaron Rodgers for as long as Aaron Rodgers is playing in that division, in my opinion. I think he still beats all those teams, even without Davante Adams to throw the ball to. I think Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are going to be both respectively amazing at what they do. I think Jones will be a better pass catcher this year. I think Dillon will run the ball well. I think Christian Watson steps up. Dubes, Lazard, they got pieces. I think the Packers will be fine. I do think in their defense, I do think the Vikings will be better because they finally will kind of unleash that passing offense a little bit more. Expect Justin Jefferson to have an incredible season, and I think Dalvin Cook's going to ball. I don't know why people are down on Dalvin Cook. It makes no sense to me. Dalvin's a beast. He's going to continue to be a beast. Outside of that, not a lot to talk about. I think the Bears, they're young. It'll be fun to see what Fields does in his second season. I think he takes a step up. Mooney probably has a good season. Watch out for Cole Kmet. That's a fantasy little sleeper that I have right there. I think he might have a good season. And honestly, those are the only three I'm going to talk about because I don't really care about the fourth team. So I'm moving on. You guys can touch on.
I'll jump in on the Lions. I think the Lions could be a really scrappy bunch. Maybe find themselves in third place. I mean, their offensive line should be good. Jared Goff is. He's not good, but he's probably bad, but he's maybe not horrible. And with Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, some fun pieces on defense. Jameson Williams should come back. Little fun. Dan Campbell gets them playing well, but I think they'll be third. Justin Fields, I'm excited about. I think he could have despite the awful pieces around him, I think he could be really fun to watch this year. At the top, I think the Vikings and Packers are going to be neck and neck the entire year. The Packers team overall still really solid. Aaron can win games with us three as his wide receivers. But the wide receiver core still seems really shaky through the preseason. I think the Vikings are going to be a really explosive team offensively. I think it's going to be neck and neck. I'm keen to see who Zach picks because if you guys both pick the Packers, I was probably going to take the Vikings as a contrarian play. And I don't want to go all chalk across the board. So I'll say the Vikings sneak out the division this year. Zach?
Let's not establish that baseline for our picks going forward, gentlemen. All right,
Ev, you were so kind in saying that we could make an NFL roster. I could potentially be on the hands team, and I think both of you guys would be handing water out to the guys and left on the sideline out there. But in terms of the division winner in the North, I'm with Ev. I think the Vikings. This is their year. They've been waiting for it the entire time. It's hard to play in U.S. Bank Stadium. Skull baby, I'm all for Kirk Cousins and just I think this is going to be an explosive passing year based off of the play action with Dalvin and Alexander Mattison, bringing in the offensive coordinator from the Los Angeles Rams. Really excited about O'Connell up there. So I think the Packers will certainly figure it out to a certain extent, but you really need skill position players. Ironically, I think the Packers will have the best defense in this entire division. But I will speak on the Lions because I've been watching Hard Knocks and I love that guy, Dan Campbell. So I hope he does well, but man, I'm not sure if he knows how to coach or not. It's a little, he's a guy straight out of the left field. So that's what I got to say.
Two quick notes.
I love it.
Two quick notes, Zach. I just want to say you would be an amazing wide receiver, one, because you catch a mean deep ball from prior examples, and two, I will bet you a case of a beer of our choosing on the Packers Vikings if you want to throw that out there in the middle of this podcast. Packers Vikings. I'll take the Packers. You want to take the Vikings for a case of beer. End of season.
Thanks. You got me on air. Absolutely stamp it. Let's go longboards.
Let's do this.
Kona longboards.
Let's do this. All right, move on.
I love Zach. I think Zach knows he's losing because he just named the beer he's going to buy you. But yeah, it makes me Zach picking the Vikings makes me want to change to the Packers, but I know I can't do that. So I was planning on being the only one. But let's go out west. The defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. So this is, I think, a really hard one because the 49ers also have a super stacked roster, but they have the huge variance of what Trey Lance is going to look like. And then you have the Cardinals who finished at, I think, 11-6 maybe last year, another really good team. The Seahawks are going to be trash, so I'm just not going to talk about them after losing Russell Wilson. So for me, I've been back and forth on Lance so many times this offseason, but the latest I've heard, and based on that Houston Texans game, I think it still might be really rough. And based on the fact that they were able to restructure Jimmy G to come back, I think it might still be really rough with Lance. And I just think the Rams are too good. Stafford is a little bit of a concern, but overall, I think he'll be fine managing it. And I think the Rams are just too stacked. So I think it's going to be a little sloppy with Lance. I actually think the Cardinals could even beat the 49ers if it's as bad as Lance has looked at times this preseason. I think it's the Rams to win the division again. If Lance plays great, they could win the division. I don't see it happening. I think it's them and the Cardinals kind of batting for 2 and 3, and that the Rams take this one once again this year.
Ev, I'm actually going to take this a little bit differently than you. I agree that the Rams are going to win the division, but I think they're going to stampede once again. I mean, this is a 13-4 team. The 49ers are good, but they're not great. And you did kind of try to compare them to the Rams. That was clever. I see what you did there, but I'm not going to give you any of this. I think the Arizona Cardinals, even with the suspensions and all the things that are going on, I think they still supersede the 49ers. It really does hedge on the Trey Lance thing, but I think you carry some FCS bias, and I'm not going to let that slide. So that's my thoughts on the NFC West.
Well, Ev, do you have anything to say about the FCS bias before I proceed? Okay,
I was anti Lance in this segment, although at times I have been very pro Lance. But Sai, go for it.
Yeah, I don't see any realm of. I'm not gonna say I don't see any realm of possibilities, but I do not expect the Arizona Cardinals to surpass the 49ers this year, because they couldn't even surpass them last year with all the injuries the 49ers had. And the 49ers still made the NFC Championship last year. And where were the Cardinals? They were sitting at home watching. So if that's the case, I actually think the 49ers roster is improved this year, because they're coming in with Debo having established himself as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. They're coming in with Ayuk coming back, having a decent bounce back season. They're coming in with Kittle healthy to start the season, and that's a huge testament to them. And then on top of that, they established Elijah Mitchell as their workhorse last year. He got hurt. They got Jeff Wilson. He gets hurt. They got Davis Price. They got a solid roster to really come back and not just be as good, but better than last year. And worst comes to worst, if Lance struggles the way Evan said, them keeping Garoppolo was a genius move, because they can put him in, and they know they can get to an NFC Championship with Jimmy Garoppolo, because they just did. The Cardinals, even if DeAndre Hopkins was healthy all year, I have no faith in Cliff Kingsbury to coach a team to get past, the first or second round of the playoffs, because admittedly, they try a lot of things. Kyler Murray doesn't want to review tape. Like, there's all kinds of situations there that don't make me excited about the Cardinals. I mean, if a guy gets a clause that requires you to review tape for you to make like hundreds of millions of dollars, that should be a sign that you need to figure something out, bro. You cannot be an NFL quarterback if you need to be paid to review tape. But anyway, that's my perspective. With all that being said, the Rams win this division, and the Rams are the best team in the NFC, in my opinion. I don't care about this whole Stafford elbow thing, because I think people try to blow things out of proportion. Stafford with a half an elbow can throw a football harder and better than half the quarterbacks in the NFL. So I'm not worried about that. They added Allen Robinson, and I expect Cam Akers to bounce back after last year, coming back from the Achilles. I think their roster has only gotten better. Defensively, they've continued to revamp where they've lost pieces. They're just going to be amazing. That's my opinion. I have a very strong opinion of the Rams being the best team in the NFC.
You couldn't pay me to study film anymore at this point in age either. So I'm with Kyler, unless maybe there's a couple $1 million on the line. Then I might change my mind. But we'll go ahead and bring in AFC here. Let's go AFC North. I'll tell you what. The scheme that is studying film vehemently is the Baltimore Ravens defensive back unit, because they are angry about what the Bengals did to them last year. Angry. I mean, Jamar Chase made a fool out of Marlon Humphrey, who in my opinion is one of the best corners in this league. I would certainly consider him top 5. So going off of that, I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to come back strong. J.K. Dobbins is healthy. Lamar is ready to rock and roll. Rashard Bateman takes the next step offensively. And they're coached by Harbaugh, who you can't, he's the best. I love Harbaugh, right? So I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens in the 1 spot in the AFC North, and then I'm going to have the Bengals closely follow after. The Bengals only got better too. I mean, now keep in mind, they were the wild card team just to get in the playoffs last year. So it wasn't like they won the division or anything like that. But I will say, Pittsburgh, they've got some quarterback concerns that they got to iron out. And then the Browns, obviously, with the suspension news that Deshaun Watson, despite having the best offensive line in football, and Jacoby Brissett is a great backup, I just don't think it's going to get them there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with you and say the Ravens are going to be upset with themselves again, and their corners are going to have to review even more tape this season, because the Bengals are going to continue to unleash fury on that defense and continue to win that division, because I think the Bengals only get better this year. I think Joe Burrow last year started the season a little bit tentative with the coming off the ACL and whatnot. I think he comes in this year as Joe Burrow that's won a national championship, and Joe Burrow in his within 3 seasons of being in the NFL, going to the Super Bowl with even more confidence. I think Ja'Marr Chase continues to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I think T. Higgins might put up better stats than Ja'Marr Chase, and I think Tyler Boyd is one of the best third options you can get. And if I haven't already covered all the reasons that they're great, on top of the fact that Joe Mixon, your boy, by the way, Zach, last year, who you were on and me and Evan weren't on, so I got to give you credit for that. On top of the fact that he balled last year, their offensive line has gotten better, and then they also added Hayden Hurst, who I don't think has had a very fair run in the NFL thus far, because every team he's gone to, they've gotten this is falling. I gotta pause.
Now I get why you spent a full 30 seconds on Hayden Hurst. That makes a little more sense. I'm gonna ride with Zach here. I think Baltimore is just gonna come out guns blazing after just an unfortunate year with all the injuries last year. Lamar is my sneaky, maybe not that sneaky, but MVP candidate, especially with the contract nonsense. I think he's just going to go ball out and be borderline unstoppable. I think the Bengals are going to be fantastic as well. I think, like Sai said, I have no reason to see them get any worse, although there's always that Super Bowl runner-up hangover, which I could definitely see with a young team like the Bengals. Steelers, I think, should be good again. I actually think they could get better quarterback play this year than the past. Kenny Pickett looks good and should take over at some point during the season, and I'm pro Mitch. And the Browns, honestly, they have a pretty stacked roster. I think Jacoby Brissett, though, even as a backup, looked awful last year, so I can't buy into that with him at the helm. But I guess Sai, maybe you want to do the I don't even know what division your Colts in. What's that one? The South, AFC South.
Make sure he gets his compass right.
The good old, yeah. This I'm not going to mess this one up, but admittedly, it makes no sense that they're in the AFC South and they're in Indianapolis, like you said. But that tees me up perfectly. I'm going to go with the AFC South, and I'm going to pick my Indianapolis Colts to win the division. This isn't a hard pick for me this year. I know in years prior I've picked them. They've been right there in the sense of making the playoffs. They made it one of the last 2 years. They didn't make it last year. But I actually think, and you can consider this a biased take, but I've never said we're a team in the last 2 years that was going to make a Super Bowl run, so to speak. We had our moments where we were really good, and we had our moments where we had bad losses. But I think this is the best version of the Colts we've seen since Andrew Luck. I think as a roster, we're way better than the teams we had with Andrew Luck, but Luck was, amazing. I think Matty Ice, from everything I'm seeing, and I know you're not supposed to buy too much into camp buzz and get too excited about what you're seeing from preseason reports and stuff like that, but Matty Ice apparently has been nothing but amazing in camp, accuracy-wise, leadership-wise. They're really riding the coattails. I think Pittman has a huge year. There's no reason not to believe Jonathan Taylor won't be, the best running back, if not a top 2 running back in the NFL again. Naheem Hines is going to have a bigger role with Matt Ryan throwing the football. And forget everything I just said about our offense. I think our defense could very well be a top 3 to 5 defense in the NFL this year with the additions we made and Stephon Gilmore, with Darius Leonard another year ahead and just continue to get better. And then on top of the fact we added, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Yannick from the Raiders in that trade with Rocky Sin. I'm super excited about the defense this year. So picking the Colts, I don't even really want to, not that I don't give the other teams credit, but I don't really want to talk about them because I just want to focus on my Colts. So I'll let you guys talk about the other teams.
Zach?
Yeah, can't disagree with that one. I think Sai hits that the hammer on the nail there, and knock on wood there. I think this is an underrated Super Bowl potential team, and the Indianapolis Colts really like what they're doing, and they're most certainly the best coach. I mean, Mike Vrabel is great, but he cannot be beat by Frank Reich. So Tennessee's going to take a big step back. There's no denying that. Not even going to talk about the Texans, even though a surprise with Marlon Mack getting released. So Dameon Pierce, this rookie, is going to get all the carries, and then Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm really excited to see Travis Etienne play, and obviously shout out Size Boy and recurring guest on our podcast, Holden, for taking the big role there with the Jaguars.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, to touch on the bottom feeders a little bit, I actually like Davis Mills a lot. Texans will still be terrible, but I actually think he's going to be a solid quarterback. Dameon Pierce should be fun. I think Trevor Lawrence plays pretty well this year. I think with how much money the Jaguars spent, they'll get a little better, but I still think they're going to be trash. At the top, I'm going to disagree with you guys. I do think this is a coin flip division. I think the Colts and Titans are very similarly built teams. But I think we're discounting the fact that we're saying that the Titans are definitely going to get worse. I think losing A.J. Brown is obviously the biggest loss, and I am not a fan of the Treylon Burks pick in terms of specific wide receivers they could have had. But, assuming Derrick Henry stays healthy, I think they're going to be able to pound the rock. Their defense could be better than the Colts. I know Sai says top 3 to 5, but look at last year. I think their defense could still be better, and I'll coin flip. I'll take the Titans, but again, I think this is a 50-50. But I think teams are discounting the Titans a little too much, given that they were the 1 seed last year. And other than A.J. Brown, I think they should be pretty similar, especially with hopefully a full year of Derrick Henry health.
Did they? I'm just curious. Did they lose Taylor Lewan? I can't remember. I thought they might have, but I was just double checking.
No, I think he's still there. He's just garbage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I was just trying to think of like offensive lines and stuff. But fair enough. That's fair point.
So I'll take it back over to probably I think the easiest division to do, which is going to be the AFC, I guess, East. The Bills will dominate this division. I think they could go 13 wins, even more maybe. I think the Bills are the best team in football, which puts a ton of pressure on them considering they haven't won yet. I think they're fantastic, absolutely stacked. Josh Allen throwing to, obviously, Diggs. Gabe Davis, I think, is going to have a huge year as his number 2. McKenzie out of the slot. Great defense. Loaded roster. Dolphins will be better. They're a fringe playoff team for me with Mike McDaniel. They're kind of rebuilding the San Francisco model. I'm still not a Tua fan, although he's looked pretty good in preseason as well, and all those weapons that they're going to have there. Patriots, I think, will be trash. Jets will maybe be a little more fun to watch, but still trash. Shout out Zach Wilson. I won't say why. Boys, what do you think?
One thing I wanted to say in terms of the Buffalo Bills is James Cook, Dalvin Cook's younger brother, is going to be very underrated and increasingly exponentially used in this offense as the season prolongs. And I'm really, really excited to see how he does. He's such an upgrade over Devin Singletary, and just wanted to almost like call that before the season starts. James Cook is going to be lethal. He's going to be the Swiss Army knife for sure. I would say the only other thing on the Miami Dolphins, really excited about that offensive scheme, but I just don't know if Mike Daniels will be able to get it done. He looks exhausted already. I would be too if I was a coach. These new hours, you're fully accountable for your team, but a guy with very little football experience, it's just going to be hard, in my opinion, for him to really turn that organization around. I think he's got the brilliant ideas, but maybe stick to offensive coordinator. Maybe that's my hot take.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bills won the division. I'm not going to sleep on the Patriots to not be relevant. I mean, they were relevant last year all the way until the very end, and it's our boy Belichick who just finds a way to stick around through it all. I mean, one thing with the Bills is I think the Bills are amazing in the sense of their offensive potential. I think defensively there's still plenty that they still have to offer. Singletary kind of stepped up in the rushing realm of things last year, but I'm just I'm just confused a little bit on it seems like everyone went into this offseason, watched that one playoff game between the Bills and the Chiefs, and then forgot about all the flaws they had last year and are now like, the Bills are the best. And I'm not pointing to you, Evan. I'm talking about media in general. And I'm a little bit confused because I'm like, oh, do we forget the Colts beat them by 4 possessions? Do we forget the Patriots beat them by 3 possessions in one of their games? They lost some. Do we forget they lost to the Jaguars the same way the Colts did? It's just funny to me because that's a team that's definitely has flaws that stand out. So I think they win the division, but I'm a little bit out on people acting like the Bills all of a sudden are the A class in the AFC because they had a close game, which, by the way, they lost to the Chiefs after the Chiefs went to the AFC Championship and lost to the Bengals. So that's my take on the Bills. I think we're getting a little excited about the Bills personally.
I have no problem with tamping some Bills enthusiasm because, agreed, the media is anointing them as the Super Bowl winner and clear-cut favorite already, which is maybe a little unfair to what they've done in the past. But I'm curious what you actually think their flaws are. How about I don't know if I see a ton.
How about their inability to stop the run, given the fact that, what was it, Taylor had 250 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns against the Bills, and their inability to slow the game down. They want to go out there and chuck the ball all the time, and you can't control clock if you rely on heavy passing. And I don't trust that they're going to come out next season and be this amazing ground and pound team. And I'm not saying you have to be, but you got to be able to stop the run if you can't run the ball yourself. And their big issue last year was the reason they lost to the Jaguars is they're for one day their offense didn't gel in terms of passing, and the Jaguars beat them 10-6 because they couldn't stop the run, and the Jaguars just controlled the clock, right? So I think their huge problem is their inability to stop the run. And if they run into any playoff caliber teams that can run the ball and throw the ball, I don't think their defense is going to be able to keep pace with that. The reason they hung around with the Chiefs is both those teams just threw the ball the entire game, and it's not like defense was played in that game. It was just whichever team had the ball last scored the touchdown, right? So I don't know that I believe that against the Ravens or the Colts, the Bills are going to have a good, fun go at it against rushing teams.
All right, Zach, dare I say best division in football history is yours?
Yes, sir. AFC West Division, let's ride. AFC West Division, let's ride. And I will actually ride on the fact with the Denver Broncos being at the top of this division. I know the Los Angeles Chargers are 100% going to take a step forward and are going to be very lethal with Herbert, obviously. Mike Williams getting that huge deal. Keenan's always going to eat as one of the best route runners in football. I get that. But do not sleep on this Denver Broncos offense with Javonte Williams taking a predominant role. Let's be honest. He's going to be the predominant back there. And then also a lot of their receivers coming back from injury. Really excited to see how Courtland Sutton finally performs. Super talented guy. Just has, battled and plagued some injuries here, as well as Tim Patrick and some of the other guys there. So I think offensively they are lethal. Their defense is fantastic. With Surtain on the corner front, they got Bradley Chubb and guys just in the interior that can stop the run. So do not sleep on these Denver Broncos. I have them first. I have the Chargers second. And dare I say I have the Chiefs third. I still think the Raiders are going to finish fourth with Devontae going there.
Wow, I think this might be one of the divisions where we all disagree on. I am buying the Chargers love here. I think the upside of this team is just so high. I said Lamar is my more sleepy MVP choice. I think my more confident choice is Herbert. Herbert, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. Austin Eckler is just an absolute stud at running back if he stays healthy. I think they can do either way. I think they could, like I said about the Bills, like I think this team can run the ball if they need to. I think this team can obviously sling the ball. Defensive upgrades, I think this team's going to be fantastic. Second, I won't necessarily go in the weeds on this. I actually like the Raiders a lot still this year. I think people are sleeping on them. I love Derek Carr. Devontae Adams and him, I think, are going to have a great connection. I'm a little concerned about what they're doing with Jacobs. I think Jacobs is actually a solid back, but they seem to want no part of him. Mm-hmm. I think there is reason to see regression just given some of the talent on their roster, but I just think they have something in the culture there that makes me think that they're still going to compete. But I'll kick it over to Cy before.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with the – here's how I look at it. There's the best player in the NFL is Aaron Donald, in my opinion. The best offensive player in the NFL is Patrick Mahomes. I'm picking Patrick Mahomes. I'm picking the $500 million man because ultimately I agree that a lot of these teams upgraded, and I do think some of the rosters are better, well-rounded. But when it comes down to quarterback play and who I trust to take this team to the division championship and to the AFC championship and beyond, I pick Patrick Mahomes 10 times out of 10 just because he hasn't done anything so far to prove me otherwise, right? Like he went to the AFC championship last year, he went to the Super Bowl the 2 years prior, and I'm not going to bet against him until he shows me that I should bet against him. And so I'm taking the Chiefs to win the division, and I'll cover how far I think the Chiefs are going to go later after we wrap this up.
Yeah, and to be clear, Zach, I have Broncos fourth behind all of them.
Wow, but what do you think? What do you think the Broncos' record is going to be at fourth? Though, do you think all of those teams are above 500?
I don't even know. Is that even possible? I think the Broncos may be right, just a bit below 500, just given the strength of their division and the AFC as a whole. Someone has to be a little below 500. That's how good this division is.
You think Russell Wilson with that offensive plethora, along with that great defense, is going to be under 500?
They had all of that last year, though. All they did really was
slot in
Russell
Wilson last year?
No, I'm saying all they did was really slot in Russell Wilson, who at this age and without being able to leave the pocket, as they said he's just going to be a completely pocket passer, I don't know if I trust his accuracy enough to put them over the top over teams like the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Raiders, who were a really strong playoff team last year. So you have to pick someone to be left out.
Fair enough.
And I'm a buyer. Well, and in the conference as a whole, the wild card situation, which we'll get on, is going to be loaded this year as well. There's so many good teams we mentioned. So someone has to be left out of the party. And for me, I just think the other three teams are better.
Yeah, I think the Raiders are that team for me as well. I agree with Zach on that one.
So should we jump to the wild cards? We just talked about the AFC, so I guess, Cy, do you want to drive the AFC wild card conversation?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so, we laid out our division champions, so I think we can each go based off of who we picked, and figure out our wild card. It would not surprise me if we were all very AFC West biased with these predictions. For example, I picked the Colts to win. I don't expect the Titans to make it. Same goes with most of the other divisions. I think right now with the new system, where we're looking at 3 total wild cards now, or it's getting
3, yeah.
3. It's getting a little crazy with the wild cards nowadays. So I'll say this: the number 1 wild card for me will be the runner-up in the AFC West, in my opinion. And I think the runner-up in the AFC West for me personally is going to be the Chargers. But then right behind them, I actually have the Denver Broncos. I think those two take the top 2 wild card spots. And every part of me wants to pick the Raiders as the other wild card spot. But the thing is, when you're all in the same division and you play each other 2 times a year, it's like almost impossible for all 4 teams to make the playoffs. So for that reason alone, I think the Raiders get beat up a little bit in their own division. And I'm going to leave them out. And I think my other wild card team, I'm not big on Tennessee, like we talked about. This is where I'm struggling a lot, because in the AFC North, we talked about the Bills. The Dolphins are a little bit fringe on that front. And then the East, man, the East has got me like a little bit flabbergasted. I kind of want to think on this, the third one. I'm gonna throw it over to you guys. I'm a little torn on this third one.
I'll jump in here. I've got the Chargers being the 5th seed. I have the Dolphins being the 6th seed, and I have the Cincinnati Bengals being the 7th seed. Actually, I'll flip Cincinnati and Miami, but I do think the Chiefs missed the playoffs this year.
Woo! Yeah, I think that the challenge, and I think like if we were stacked, it's so hard this year. Like I said, you can't necessarily stack your best teams because of the way the West is going to beat up on each other, and the East and the South, the Colts out there. Whoever doesn't win that division is going to have a couple of cupcake teams to maybe beat up on. Although the Jaguars gave people problems, like we talked about. But I'm gonna more or less stack my best teams in the conference though, and go Chiefs, Bengals, Raiders.
Yeah, and I thought a lot about it. Like, I was like, is this going to be the year that Harbaugh, struggles with the Ravens front, like, Marquise Brown gone? But I'm not picking against Harbaugh to not make the playoffs with Lamar Jackson as his quarterback, especially with how motivated Lamar is going to be. I'll take the Ravens as my last team to make it. I think them and the Broncos will be pretty right there with record wise. So that's my opinion on the AFC wildcard as well.
All right, and I'll drive the NFC playoff picture in terms of wild cards. So I definitely think first wild card, I'm going to go with whoever doesn't win the division between the Packers and the Vikings. I picked the Vikings, to win the division. So I'll say Packers as my top wild card. And then I think actually, what did I have? So I have the 4 that I'm debating between are definitely Saints, Cardinals, and 49ers. So I'm going to say the Cardinals are left out of that bunch, and the 49ers and Saints also get wild cards. Yeah, those are mine.
Fair enough.
Wow, very interesting. Mine are somewhat similar, but very of a drop off a cliff there for the 7th seed I'm about to give over here. So I've got the Packers at 5. I've got the Saints at 6, and I've got the Panthers at 7. I think the NFC South comes out of nowhere, and they outperform the NFC West this year. Surprisingly.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So that's a fair point. I'm going to go with, this is a tough one. All right. I agree. I think I'm going to go with the 49ers as the number 1 seed in the wild card. The 5 seed, the 6 seed. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with the Cowboys. I think they'll finish right behind the Eagles. So I think the Cowboys will make it. And that's 7 seed's the one I'm struggling with. Again, man, it's this third wildcard edition that's driving me bonkers. I wish we didn't do it, but with the third wildcard, I can't believe I'm doing this. But am I leaving the Vikings out in the favor of the Saints? No, I'm gonna go Vikings. I'll go Vikings as my seventh pick. I think that'll be a really close one, but I think the Vikings will sneak in, will eke in.
We'll go from one division to the next over here. Back to the AFC. I want your conference champions, and I want that game. Who are going to be the 2 teams that compete there? E, we'll kick it over to you.
Oh, put me on the spot first. In the AFC we're doing?
AFC.
Oh, my gosh. I might get a little... Oh, wait, I forgot about the Bills. Whoops. Give me... This is so hard. I have to have the Bills there because I think they're going to dominate. Give me Baltimore. I think Brandon Staley has the potential to screw up games in a big way with his just super aggressive analytics-driven strategies we found last year. So for me, I was between Baltimore or the Chargers. Give me Baltimore against the Bills, and it's just so hard to pick against the Bills. I'm going to take the Bills to win that.
You want me to go next, Zach? All right, I'll go with my conference. I will tee this up by saying that this is not a pick I've made in many years, but I am 100% going to go with my bias this year because I actually legitimately believe that in the sense of how well-balanced we are. I am not, in a loaded AFC with the way we stick to our guns and the way we run the football and with the quarterback that I can finally trust to not turn the ball over in big moments and be clutch. Matty Ice, Jonathan Taylor, Quentin Nelson, and my boy Darius Leonard, or Shaq Leonard as he goes by now, are going to make the AFC Championship, and I think they're going to face the Kansas City Chiefs in a very close matchup. Are we picking our winner as well?
Yeah, pick your winner.
I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win that game and go to the Super Bowl. Chiefs over Colts.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go Denver Broncos versus the Indianapolis Colts, and I have the Indianapolis Colts winning and going to the Super Bowl.
I love you,
Suck
Zach.
up.
Evan's just sitting there taking notes, and he is going to be so excited for when this doesn't happen, and we're never going to hear the end of it, Si.
Oh, I know. But I love you for picking them.
We do need to clip these because it's like the football season is so long. I feel like I forget some of the ridiculous things that each of us say. Yeah.
So NFC. I'm going to lay it out for you guys. I know Evan is the big NFC proponent here in the sense of a team that might be competitive in their respective division. No offense to Zach Pikulik. So with that being said, I'll actually let Evan make that first pick as the NFC representative for the year.
Yeah, I want to do something creative, and it would have been 49ers if I hadn't heard all this awful Lance buzz out of that Houston game and otherwise. So for me, it's the Rams again, and I know I didn't pick the Packers to win the division, but I think by the end of the year, they're going to have identified who those big play weapons are on the outside, whether it's Christian Watson, Romeo Dubes, or maybe it's just the three veterans, Watkins, Lazard, and Randall Cobb of all people. And they obviously have two tremendous backs. I just think by the end of the year, the Packers will be there as well, and I'm going to take the Rams to go back to the Super Bowl.
Yep, I think Tampa Bay is going to get bounced early in the playoffs. I've got the Rams, too. I'm not overthinking this one. I think they play the Vikings in the conference championship. I think the Rams serve them out and go back to the next Super Bowl back-to-back.
Wow, we all have our division champs of those two respective divisions playing each other in. Well, I guess Evan didn't pick the Packers as division champ, so this kind of worked out perfectly because I'm going to pick the Packers to play the Rams as well in the playoffs and in the conference championship. And I'm torn here because I actually want to pick of all years this year to be the one without Devontae Adams, where Aaron Rodgers takes him to the Super Bowl. But every part of me is like, the Rams are the better overall team. Should I do it? But you know what? Zaire Alexander is back. Arguably the best, if not top 2 to 3 corner in the NFL. He's back and he's healthy. That's going to be huge for them. And they still got a solid middle linebacker situation going on with their defense. And they're healthy on the defensive front. I'm rolling Packers this year. I think Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, like I said earlier, have a huge role in the rushing game. I think it's going to be Packers versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year for me.
All right, it's time for a Super Bowl pick then. I guess that leaves my matchup with Bills and Rams. I feel like I've kind of decided that I'm just going to pick the Bills to win the Super Bowl every single year until it happens because I've just been riding them lately. I just think that roster is so talented. I think this is finally the year. I got the Bills winning the Super Bowl.
Zach, this is like me picking Michigan State.
I cannot wait for them to crown the Super Bowl on Matt Ryan. I want them to put the crown on Matt Ryan's head. Just because he has deserved to win a Super Bowl for so long in Atlanta. And you know what? If he can't win it in my organization, I hope he at least wins it in yours. So I'm going to go Colts. I think Colts could actually be a very, very lethal team this year. I mean, people are really, I feel like, ignoring that concept. And they're just so structurally sound. And I think the quarterback that they needed is now in shop. So I'm really excited.
I'm honestly upset with myself that I didn't even have the Colts going to the Super Bowl. Like, I love you, Zach, for having the faith in us, and I hope we do your boy Matt Ryan some justice because he deserves that after all the dedication he's given to the Falcons. Class act. With that being said, I will go with the Chiefs to win it. I know that's boring. I know they've already won recently, but I really do it's my bias towards quarterback play. I really do believe the best quarterbacks get their teams there in their heyday, and I think Mahomes is very much still entering his prime, and I think he's just going to start establishing his legacy as the GOAT, or continue to establish his legacy as the GOAT, because it would not surprise me if he retired as one. So with that being said, I'm going with the Chiefs, man, and I'm surprised I'm doing it again, but I'm doing it.
All right, boys. I guess that's it. The next thing to do is just watch some football. I don't know if you guys got anything to add on the season preview before we wrap up.
Yeah, the only thing the Chiefs are going to win is the TikTok championship with Juju and Jackson Mahomes. So I'm really excited for that as well. But in all seriousness, it's just very different. This is a very diverse grouping that we're all pairing in terms of who's going to the conference championship, who's winning the Super Bowl. So really excited to track this. And, we know exactly what's going to happen. The moment it's week 3, all of our predictions are pretty much going to be in shambles. So I can't wait. I'm looking forward to that too.
Love it, gentlemen. Always a pleasure. I can't believe NFL is about to be back. Fantasy, I just want to throw a plug out there. I'm gonna be getting some fantasy football segments up there with the number of drafts. I actually have one with our other SB league after this. So just want to give you guys a heads up to be tracking the fantasy football guy segments, and we'll give you guys some links and segments to some blogs that we put up on the website. So keep a heads up. I would appreciate any input from Evan and Zach as we continue to build that side of the website. And always a pleasure. Can't believe first episode of the Seams Media Mondays Down South conglomerate that we are establishing. Let's do this. Football's back. Love you, gentlemen.
9 days away, baby. 9 days away. That was Mondays Down South, presented by
Seams Media.